I'm Darius Spearman, and you're watching African Elements. Social movements have not always done the best job incorporating people who face multiple layers of oppression. That's true of Black women and people of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and asexual identities in both the civil rights and feminist movement. It's also true of people of color in the LGBT movement. Huey Newton and the Black Panther Party proposed a revolutionary black nationalist position that sought to unite oppressed people. We'll see how, coming up next. Thank you for watching African Elements. If you're new to this channel, we produce content in Black and Africana studies and bring it right here where the people are at. Check out our webpage, africanelements.org, for educational resources and news articles updated daily. To support this content, be sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe. Or you can become one of the history makers in our growing Patreon community. This promises to be a spicy conversation, so let's get cooking. Throughout history, the impact of intersectionality has limited the effectiveness of social movements. Intersectionality refers to the idea that multiple forms of oppression, such as race, gender, class, sexuality, ability, religion, and nationality, interact in complex ways to produce unequal outcomes for people who experience them simultaneously. Kimberly Crenshaw coined the word in 1989 to describe how Black women experience systematic oppression from being both Black and female. Because they experience multiple layers of oppression, the civil rights movement, for example, has often failed to address the specific needs of Black women and the queer Black community. Simultaneously, the women's rights movement has often failed to meet the needs of Black women and non-gender conforming people. Lastly, the LGBT liberation movement has often failed to address the needs of queer people of color. Even before there was a word to describe intersectionality, the Black Panther Party had already taken a position on the Revolutionary Black Nationalist stance towards multi-layered forms of oppression. As we've seen, Revolutionary Black Nationalism embraces anti-colonialism and solidarity with oppressed people as part of a global movement against colonization, racism, gender-based oppression, and capitalism. On August 15, 1970, Newton gave a speech that outlined the Black Panther Party's position on the women's liberation and gay liberation movement and their relation to the Black liberation struggle. During the past few years, strong movements have developed among women and homosexuals seeking their liberation. There's been some uncertainty about how to relate to these movements. Whatever your personal opinions and your insecurities about homosexuality and the various liberation movements among homosexuals and women, and I speak of homosexuals and women as oppressed groups, we should try to unite with them in a revolutionary fashion. I say whatever your insecurities are because, as we very well know, sometimes our first instinct is to want to hit a homosexual in the mouth and want a woman to be quiet. We want to hit a homosexual in the mouth because we're afraid that we might be homosexual. And we want to hit the woman or shut her up because we are afraid that she might castrate us or take the nuts that we might not have to start with. We must gain security in ourselves and therefore have respect and feelings for all oppressed people. Huey Newton's position sought to align Black women and the Black queer community in ways that the civil rights, feminist, and LGBT liberation movements could not. Because white feminists did not experience the same oppression Black women faced, their agendas were often not aligned with those of Black feminists. Black women are positioned differently within structures of power than white women. The same is true of Black women and Black men in the civil rights movement. Black feminist organizations were formed in reaction to the limits on African American women's roles in the civil rights movement and the rise of Black masculinist rhetoric. The National Black Feminist Organization, or NBFO, was founded in May 1973 to address the double burden of sexism and racism Black women faced. The NBFO and Black feminists adopted a position that, considering the history of racial tensions in the United States, it is not surprising that it was African American women who engendered the initial challenge to petty bourgeois feminism by refusing to sacrifice their community needs to the demands of racist, elite white women. In Marxist economic theory, petty bourgeois describes those who live on wage labor rather than owning capital assets. However, the petty bourgeois class tends to adopt the values of the bourgeois class, or middle class, who have an interest in materialism, consumerism, and conforming to the social norms of the dominant society. In modern terms, petty bourgeois values amount to respectability politics. Although feminist movements fought for women's justice, the extent to which white feminists have embraced petty bourgeois values often put their agendas in conflict with women of color. For example, as Dr. Monica Williams notes, the white feminist movement ignores oppression inflicted by the criminal justice system. Consider the shocking facts that 60% of women in jail have not been convicted of a crime and are awaiting trial. 80% of women in jail are single mothers, and 2/3 are women of color. 1/3 are suffering from major mental illness. Alongside the NBFO, the Combahee River Collective was a black feminist lesbian group active in Boston from 1974 to 1980. The collective took its name from a historic raid Harriet Tubman led on the Combahee River in South Carolina. Highlighting how racism affects black lives, the group shaped their views on feminism and race relations in response to the murder of 2 black women in Boston. The collective worked towards eliminating racism and white feminism as well. Their focus on destroying the systemic oppression of black women was rooted in the theory that if black women were free, it would mean that everyone else would have to be free, since our freedom would necessitate the destruction of all the systems. Despite being oppressed in ways similar to African Americans in the Black liberation movement, the mainstream LGBT movement tends to ignore queer people of color. While white queer people face oppression, they gain some protection from white supremacy that black, queer, and transgender people can never receive. People of color make up 89% of the 53 trans people murdered in the United States. According to the National Center for Health Statistics, the annual murder rate for Americans aged 15 to 34 is about 1 in 12,000. For black trans women, the rate rockets to 1 in 2,600. While the Black Panther Party sought to confront oppression in all forms, the same was not always true of the mainstream LGBT movement. Much like the Black Panther Party, the modern LGBT movement was born out of anti-police violence protests led by black, queer, and transgender people. Consequently, the Black Panther Party heavily influenced many of the strategies, tactics, and slogans of gay liberation. In what became known as the Stonewall Uprising, New York police officers raided a gay and transgender-friendly bar called the Stonewall Inn in the Greenwich Village neighborhood of Manhattan on June 28, 1969. As the police began pulling people out, the community fought back, sparking 3 days of riots. The historic resistance launched the modern LGBT movement. Marsha P. Johnson was an early participant in the Stonewall Uprising. She was also a transgender woman who helped create the Street Transgender Action Revolutionary Organization. Any complete account of the Stonewall riot and the creation of Pride should highlight her story. However, it's equally important to remember that there were many black, queer, and trans people who participated in the Stonewall uprisings and set the foundation for Pride. Like feminism, petty bourgeois politics has limited LGBT liberation to the extent that it has failed to place the safety of black trans women as a central concern and whitewashed the history of the movement. Huey P. Newton and the Black Panther Party positioned sexism and genderphobia in the civil rights movement and racism in the feminist and LGBT movements as branches of the same white supremacist capitalist tree. Although not always successful at implementing this theory, at its core, Huey Newton's vision of black revolutionary nationalism sought to overturn and uproot that tree. I'm Darius Spearman, and if you're still with me, I hope you'll consider joining the history makers in our Patreon community who make it possible for me to continue to make this content in Black history. Thank you so much for your support. If you'd like to become a history maker, you can join them for as little as $1 a month. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and until next time, I'll see you in the comments.